I'm Julie Legg, author of The Missing Piece and diagnosed with ADHD at 52. Welcome to ADHD Difference. In this episode, I chat with the very talented J.M. Shaw from Alberta, Canada. Jennifer, as she is also known, is the fantasy fiction writer of the Callum Walker series that you may have heard. She was diagnosed with ADHD and autism just a few years back in adulthood, and we talk about life as a neurodivergent and also her passion for writing. Well, it is so lovely to have you join us today, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
From Alberta, Canada to New Zealand. Yes, we're spanning the time zone today.
A few of them.
So, look, can you tell us a bit about your journey of discovering your ADHD diagnosis as an adult?
Yeah, so I wasn't diagnosed until after my first son was diagnosed in 2019, and we were going through the ADOS assessment. He has autism and ADHD, and I'm like, I remember thinking, those are the things you're looking for? Because that's been me my whole life. And then literally 3 months after he was diagnosed, I received my own diagnosis of autism and combined presentation ADHD.
Wow. And did that come as a surprise to you, or were there kind of little hints along the way that you thought something might be different?
Well, I didn't know because I didn't have anything to compare my sons to, but looking back, there's a lot of things that now I'm like, okay, that made sense. So it's been a real eye-opener for me.
Absolutely. And ADHD and autism, that's quite a common partnership, isn't it?
Yeah. My kids are 8 and 10. And I was trying to explain to them, I was like, it's like your computer is opened with every single tab on the top. You've got music playing here, you got a video playing here, and then it's too much, and I get the swirly wheel of death. But I've never tried to think about it as a disability. I like the way my brain works.
What I find very exciting about your work as J.M. Shaw with your fantasy fiction writing.
Yes.
I'm very excited by that because for ADHDers, creativity plays such a huge part. So
Absolutely.
Can you tell me about this series, your Callum Walker series, and about your writing?
Yeah, so I've been writing for, I don't want to age myself, but I've been writing for over 30 years. And when I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, I thought maybe this is my special interest because, it started as a hobby, turned into a passion. Now it's just cheaper than therapy. So I started this series with the question of what if fairy tales were more than stories, monsters were flesh and blood? We just didn't know it. And I kind of ran with it. And I started out, so there's our world, our time, there's a coexisting magical realm, but there's a veil that separates us. We can't see or cross this veil because we don't have magic. But these creatures from this realm that do can and have, and they've been the source of inspiration for our mythologies. My protagonist, Callum Walker, is a young man born with the ability to use magic. He doesn't know why, he's trying to make the most of it, and he gets embroiled in what's going on in this magical realm. And then through the series, we follow him trying to figure out who he is, where he fits in, and master his abilities to survive in this world that's very much over his head.
Wow, that's awesome. And now the reading age is 13 to 18? Is it that kind of
young adult, new adult crossovers, so like teens and 20s, but I've had everybody from my 8-year-old son up to octogenarians enjoying my novels. So
wonderful. And does your ADHD and autism influence your work, do you think, as far as imagination and creative writing?
As far as the creative writing process, yes, absolutely. I've always been out of the box thinker, trying to deal with what ifs. I got the what if award in high school because I would ask the most crazy, well, what if? So, but I feel that I see the world in a different way. I mean, I'm always kind of thinking, if that wasn't that way, what would it be like? So I do believe that it has. Now I can hyper focus as well, like nobody's business. So I can sit down at my computer 8 a.m. in the morning and 8 p.m. in the evening, get up and realize, oh, wow, the whole day is gone. And I've written like 100 pages. So.
Wow. And so what is your typical writing process? Is it in bursts, as you've explained, when you're hyper-focusing, or do you have a ritual writing process, daily,
I
weekly?
Yes. Because I've been writing for so long, it feels weird not to write. So it's kind of become part of my daily routine. And I homeschool my kids up till this year. So they're now in school. So I have that time during the day I have two very busy boys. I have that time during the day when they're at school to do more writing and a lot of other things, kind of exploring ideas for. So instead of having more time to do things, I'm finding I'm more busy now because I'm like, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, so but I do write every single day. And when I'm not writing, I'm thinking about writing.
Wow. And what helps you stay on track? Because with your imagination, are you working solely on one book at a time, or are you having these amazing brainstorm ideas of plots for yet another book further down the track? How do
I've
you?
written hundreds and hundreds of stories over the last like 30 plus years. And I was never allowed, I never allowed myself to delete anything. So I've got a lot of ideas there. I got a lot of ideas rattling in my head. I can only work on, because I'm very linear, I can only finish one project at a time. But what I do is I have a document on my computer. It's like, I call it little snippets, like little scenes, I have this idea for this car chase or whatever. But I don't want to start a story just because I have the scene idea in my head. So I'll write down the scene, file it away in this snippets.
Fabulous. And,
Yeah.
we've got some, as ADHDers and you too with autism, we've got some challenging traits that come and trip us up sometimes. How do you manage some of your quirks in order to stay on track and to balance your life, a busy life as a mum and a writer?
Yeah, I have to get away sometimes. I used to feel guilty about spending time writing, but then I realized I'm like, this is my self-care. So I do take that time because it's important to me. But my husband is very understanding. So he comes home, we have this code work. I'm broken. I need a break, kind of thing. I have to text it now because my kids can spell. And so what it means is when he gets home, he takes the kids, I get my headphones on and I go for a walk. Doesn't matter if it's, middle of summer, middle of winter, doesn't matter. I got to get out of the house and just
Wow.
let my mind wander.
You'd have to have that balance, don't you? Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so fantasy fiction often explores, themes of otherness and alternative people and ourselves, really. And do you find that your neurodivergence is expressed through your characters in your writing?
Oh, definitely. Actually, it was during a book signing, it was pointed out to me that my character's journey, trying to figure out where he is, because he's too human for our side of the veil, but he's too magical for our side of the veil. I'm getting mixed up, but he's too human for that side of the veil. He says, oh, it's kind of like you with your autism, trying to figure out where you fit. I was like, I totally didn't even realize that. So I am writing myself into my books. I am writing my experience into my books. So, but I'm just writing things that I see and also dealing with putting things in there to present things like mental health issues, the importance of families and friends, those wholesome messages and stuff in an adventure setting. So, and I'm not like whacking somebody over the head with a 2x4. Here's a wholesome message. Psh, so I kind of put those things in there and little insights that I have about life as well. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's brilliant. Also, what will readers be surprised to learn about you as Jennifer, the writer, the parent, the creative?
Oh, I guess I'm not very much of I'm not very much of a girly girl. I'm very much a tomboy. Growing up, I had four younger brothers. I was the oldest, the only girl. I'm not into the girly stuff. I like things like I did martial arts for many years. I love airsoft. I love hiking. I love, I just all those things that are, my brothers did. And I said, hey, that's fun. I don't want to go paint my nails and, I'm just not that kind of person and stuff. I guess that would be surprising.
That's funny because I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
I've never, as a child and teen and adult, I've never really been that girly girl with painted nails and high heels and the rest.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
It
Maybe
is. It is.
that's,
I mean, I have lots of fun.
yeah, I bet you do. Well, that's wonderful. So, hmm, what would you what would you suggest to other people who are neurodiverse, who are creative, and who are thinking of writing as well? Because it can seem quite overwhelming if
Mhm.
you haven't done it before.
Mhm.
What tips or tricks would you suggest for them?
So when I was in school, I didn't pay attention much into English. I was more of a science and math geek because your answers were either right or wrong. It was all black. It wasn't
Mm,
like a bunch of grays. It was all either black or white. It was right or wrong. So I didn't pay much attention to, language arts or English when growing up. But I don't need to tell a good story. And what I've done over the years to improve my writing is I've made a list of rules for myself, like the little poems like I before E except after C unless you're a Rottweiler, those kind of things. But it's like, where do commas go in there? How can I, teaching my kids actually, homeschooling up to grade 4, that teaching them the English and the rules and such was really important for me too. I relearned all of those that I didn't really pay attention to. But I make myself a lot of little poems and little rules to follow that I can point out. And there's a lot of resources out there in Google.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's I guess removing some of those barriers
Mhm.
that that stop us begin our task initiation, and yeah, put those aside in order to go and let your creativeness be expressed. So
Totally.
that's wonderful. And did you have any training at all for writing, or did you put yourself on a writing course, or did you just put down your thoughts to paper?
Like I said, I started out when I was 12, and when I'm writing, I see it as a video in my head, and I'm just writing down what I see. Didn't pay attention in high school. My mom was an English major, so but I had no desire to learn how to write properly and the mechanics of it. I just wanted to tell the story. I was an X-ray tech before I became, a mom slash author. But since I decided to publish and I'm writing more, and instead of just stories for myself, I'm sharing. I've had to learn a lot about the mechanics of writing, and I've asked my mom to teach me. I've also talked to other editors and stuff. Okay, you've changed one word in that sentence and made it completely different. How did you do that? Just trying to learn as much as I can about the actual writing craft.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your publishing process? Are you an indie publisher,
Oh, yeah.
or you are? Brilliant. How did you find that process?
The first book, was a bit of a step. There was, ISBN numbers, websites, social media, trying to figure out how to tell the world I exist. I don't like to say marketing because it's a scary word, so I just say, well, I'm telling the world I exist. Those kind of things. It was all a huge learning curve. Once I had all the steps set up for my first book, though, the second book wasn't that bad to put out, and then the third book's easier. Editors, there's all these little details, but now I have a checklist of things, and I just sort of check them off as I go, and set all the steps in motion.
That's amazing. And so your first book was 2019, and you've just released your third book in the series?
My first book came out 2021. I started writing it in 2019, published in 2021, and then the second one came out 2022. The third one came out fall of 2023, and my fourth book is coming out early next year.
Oh, how fabulous. And is there an end, or will you just keep on having adventures with Callum Walker?
Well, I know where the series is going to end. I just don't know how many books it's going to take to get there. So,
Ah,
I have a plan, but it's sort of a flexible plan.
wow. And does Callum age at all, or does he remain sort of a generic age?
Well, he started the book, he's 22. And by the second or the third book, I think it's the third book, yeah, when he wakes up, when we start out in the third book, he's having his 23rd birthday. So we're just following his timeline along.
Wow. Wow. Well, that is so fascinating. And I'm so pleased that you've gone ahead and done that and not stopped at one book. I think if there's creativity in there, it needs to get out and for
Yeah.
people to read. And so, where can people read your book? Where can they pick it up?
Yeah, so my books, I guess, if you're in Alberta, they're in about 13 different Indigo and Chapter stores. It's like the US has their Barnes and Noble. We have our Indigo and Chapters. Otherwise, they are available on Amazon. They're on Kobo. You can find the links on my website. It's www.jmshawauthor.com.
Brilliant.
And read the descriptions about my books. You can follow on the bottom of my website is my links for my Instagram and Facebook. And under each tab with the books, it'll take you right to Amazon.
That's brilliant. And I will be putting all of those links in the show notes too. And for those listening, you can find it all below, just an easy click through away.
I know that the fantasy, especially magical fantasy genre, is really rife with the romance, the spicy romance. I don't write spicy romance. That's one of the things I cannot write. I don't write mystery because I can't figure out the whodunits. I don't write history because I fall asleep, and I don't do spicy romance. That's not to say that there isn't romance in my book. You just don't need to know what happens in the bedroom. There's nobody that has 3 chapters worth of stamina. So there's so many out there. I don't want to add to the confusion that's going to be hitting this generation that's coming out now.
That's great. So that's a wholesome fantasy fiction reading.
Yes, because I had written for so many, like 3 decades. And when I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, I thought maybe this is my special interest, like I said. And that's when I got brave because I'd never shared anything before that. I took my first manuscript for my first book, The Ascension, and I sent it off to an editor thinking, okay, the worst they can say is it sucks. And if they do, I will know and I'll move on. My editor came back and said, this doesn't suck. You should publish. And I remember wanting to be a published author for so many years. And so when I heard that, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And it's been terrifying. But, I don't think I would be a published author if it wasn't for my autism and ADHD.
Yes, the drive, tenacity, and I guess things like overcoming rejection, the criticism side of things, and believing in yourself. So some self-compassion and going forward and risk-taking in a way to put your personal self out there through your characters. But good on you. And just with regards to you were saying explaining ADHD and autism to your children, are they finding it? How are they finding it in school or in the community? Is it more accepted now as it may have been in the past?
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, there was hardly any information on it. I mean, yes, you'd hear the odd kid, you'd hear ADHD occasionally, but more it was, oh, they're a troubled child or they're just really rambunctious. I remember people telling me with my boys that, oh, you have 2 very busy boys. I had no idea what that meant because that was my whole world. And then I babysat a little girl and I thought she was broken because she just sat there and played quiet. She wasn't trying to dive bomb somebody off the counter or hit them over the head with a toy. And I think that was the point that I realized. I was like, okay, maybe my kids are extra busy. And I think going into the school at the age that they are, there's a lot more resources and understanding around them. I wish I'd had some of that when I was growing up because I had to come up with my own strategies. And I also found out last year that I have mild dyslexia too. So some of the strategies I had to come up for that. But I do remember reading books and I would have my book out here and I'd put my bookmark here and I'd go down the next line because I get lost once I get to the end. I couldn't find my way to the next line. Yes. And I had to come away and she took my bookmark and said, you can't read that way. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to use my finger. You can't take that away. So it's just like things that I came up with. I remember not knowing how to talk to people. So I would make notebooks. I was like, okay, so-and-so said this. Oh, that was a response. Oh, there's a smile. That must be what I need to say when somebody says that. And I have notebooks of conversations because I came up with my own strategies for things. But I definitely think that there's a lot more resources and there's a lot more acceptance of it now.
May I ask, are you taking medication for ADHD at all?
Yes, I am taking medication for ADHD. And when I started on the medication is when I wrote my Ascension.
Fabulous. So in no way it's getting in the way of your creativity. In fact, it's enhancing the ability to get it all out.
I can keep my thoughts straight and organize multiple points of view and different perspectives. And, it was definitely a lot easier for me to stay focused being on the medications. I had tried for years without it. And I thought, you know what? I just realized that I was diagnosed in 2019 with it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to try the medication, see if it works. If it doesn't, then I can at least say I've tried. And it was night and day. And I think my husband said the first thing he knows, he's like, wow, you're not speeding as much anymore. I was like, I didn't realize I was.
Wow, that's a remarkable shift. I love the podcast has enabled me really to reach out across the oceans and to meet other really inspiring, wonderful people with ADHD and neurodiversity. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to chat to you today. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. You know what? When I was diagnosed, I don't make it a secret. And I found a lot of other people reach out to me. It's like, hey, how did you find out? Because I think I might, or I think my sister might, or whatever. And I remember people asking me, what is it like to have autism and ADHD? I'm like, I don't know. What's it like to not? It's all I know. What's it feel like to breathe? I don't know.
That's so true. That's so true. And I'm so glad we had a chance to chat. I'm very inspired, and I might have to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard for a fiction novel myself at some stage. I've done the non-fiction, but I feel that there's a little bit more to express than non-fiction, so that'll be fun.
A little more freedom, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. Oh, just on a personal note, I was. Did you find that you were masking? Now you know what masking is. Do you think you masked a lot? Did that help get you through? Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big people watcher to try to figure out what was expected of me, because there's no blueprint for how you're supposed to act in public. So I just had to kind of watch. And I think, looking back, I had a lot of like the characteristic, the presentations, it was there. It was obvious, like looking back now, but there wasn't as much awareness of it. But yes, I still mask on a daily basis. I think the first half of this meeting I was masking, and then now I'm not so masking anymore, but there's
there you go.
Masking happening.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've revealed yourself behind the mask. It's it's a very cool thing to do, but I understand, and I do it myself with regards to it's easy to fall back into that masking because we're so used to doing it for so many decades, really.
And if I don't mask, then I will say, I'm afraid I'm going to say something or do something or be annoying, and I'm not sure why, and I don't know. It's like you either have your mask. It's like a horse. You either hold the reins or you go wild. There's no in between.
Well, it's lovely meeting you. Thank you, Jennifer.
You too. It was lovely meeting you as well. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, you're most welcome.